Welcome to the new episode of Heroes Among Us on The-Shree-Channel. I'm Veena Rao and it's my pleasure to introduce two women who wear many hats, such as publishers, journalists, writers, entrepreneurs and businesswomen. Please welcome Ms. Veena Rao and Ms. Jyotsna Hegde on The-Shree-Channel.
Thank you so much for having us on your show, Veena ji.
Thank you, Shree-Channel, and thank you, Veena ji, for having us on your show today.
Veena Rao is an award-winning journalist and author. As a founding editor and publisher of NRI Pulse, an Atlanta-based news publication, she is recognized by Limca Book of Records as first Indian woman to edit and publish a newspaper outside India. Veena is passionate about promoting South Asian literary voices in US through her news publication and as a board member of Traveling South Asian Literary Festival. When not immersed in writing and meeting press deadlines, Veena can be found meditating or walking the wooded trails in her neighborhood. She is also an award-winning author of the book called The Purple Lotus. Ms. Jyotsna Hegde is an entrepreneur with a creative bent and has a very eclectic background that combines her engineering skill and creative instincts. She is an accomplished writer, journalist, someone with a deep interest and passion in technology, writing, and medicine. She has written numerous well-received reports of local newspapers, headed committees responsible for promoting major events, has conducted numerous interviews with very high-profile individuals. She also has been recipient of many awards for her services to the community. Welcome to the Shree-Channel and thank you for giving us your valuable time. Let me congratulate both of you on 20 years completion of NRI Pulse. It's a great achievement and very inspirational for all of us. Okay, so let's go back a little 20 years ago. Veena, tell me what was your motivation or inspiration for this particular publication or trying to do something for the community?
Yeah. So, in order to answer your question, Veena ji, I think I'll have to go back a few years, back to my childhood. I grew up in Mangalore, a small coastal city in southern India. And growing up, I was very introverted, very timid and shy, and very, very quiet. I hardly ever opened my mouth. And so books became an escape for me. My brother used to bring all these wonderful books from the library, and I used to escape into them. And when I was about 12 years old, I started writing full-length novels in my notebook for my schoolmates classmates to read during lunch break. And maybe when I was 13, I decided that I would grow up to become a world-famous writer. Okay, of course, writing a book is not a joke, right? So I decided to go into another kind of writing, which is journalism. They're not very similar, of course. Creative writing is very, very different from journalism, but this is something I discovered later. So I got a postgraduate diploma in journalism and communication. I started working for the Indian Express newspaper. And then when we moved to the United States, I was told that it's very difficult to make it in the mainstream media without a US degree, which I did not have the means to go back to school at that time. And so I started working for, I don't know if you remember this, Veena ji, there used to be a newspaper called Atlanta Samachar back in the early 2000s. So I used to work for that newspaper, and then they closed down, and then I started working for Khabar magazine for a while. And then I decided, sitting in my living room, I thought, why not launch my own magazine, That's something I would enjoy better than working for somebody else. And so that's how NRIPulse.com was launched in 2004. And then a couple of years later, a friend in the community, he's also a journalist, he came to me and he said, why don't you launch a print edition? And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. And once that idea, was planted in my head, It just consumed me totally. So the only problem was I was a journalist, but I had no background in running a business, let alone a media business. I had no capital. I had zero capital. So what I did was I went to all the Indian-owned businesses in the community, and I tried to sell them my idea. And so 5 of the top businesses agreed to advertise in the inaugural issue, and that's how NRI Pulse was born. And I must add that Mr. Shiv Agarwal of Global Mall, where we are right now, he's been very supportive, right? He's been with us from the second issue, I think. From the second issue in 2006 until today, he's been very, very supportive of NRI Pulse. So that's the story.
What a wonderful story it is. So Jyotsna ji, your background is completely different. You have masters in computer science and you have worked as a computer person. How did you get involved in journalism, and how did you manage the transition, because it's so different?
Yes, like Veena, I'll have to go back just a little bit. Growing up, I was an avid reader. I grew up in a family. I grew up in a joint family, and I grew up reading Reader's Digest, Span, Science Director. We had all these magazines. I grew up reading that. Apart from that, my grandfather used to run Sri Rama Press. So he was a publisher, and I spent most of my weekends hanging out in the just playing with all the back then they didn't have all these sophisticated technology, so I would spend a lot of time in the press. So that was something that was in me, I think. But then I grew up, and then I did my the usual computer science, and then I came here, got my master's, and then when I was in Baltimore, I started teaching at a university. I continued to do my software work, but I also was teaching at a university. At that university, when I was with these undergrads, I helped them with their projects and helped them write articles, for the college magazine and things. That's when I think I really started to realize my true calling. I wanted to write. So, and then as it happened, we moved to Atlanta, and then I had expressed my feelings to, sort of change my, at least do some writing at some level. And one of our friends actually first introduced me to Cover. I used to do their spotlight feature at the time. And, but that did happen. Those interviews, were few and far between, it was not constant writing. So I went to Hindu temple one day, and as I was standing there, this Panditji came. I was talking to my husband. I was saying, I need to write more, I need to do something. So this Panditji comes behind me, and he gives me NRI Pulse newspaper and says, you should write for them. I was like, okay. And then I was looking at this, there was Veena's number there, so I made a note of it. And I said, this is it was meant to be. So immediately the very next morning I called Veena. Of course, in my head I was thinking, I also had read, Gone with the Wind, Margaret Mitchell, and I was here, in my head, the first article I wanted to do was something to do with being in the land of Margaret Mitchell, this and that. And when I called Veena said, oh yeah, are you interested in writing? We have this guy who passed away because there was an air crash. I was like, oh, okay. So she said, do you want to write about it? I was like, okay, that could be something. And so, but yeah, then I think that was the first one that I wrote about, right, Veena? And then, so that's how my journey with, that's how I came into writing. But yeah, so then I said, writing is my calling, and I had literally been blessed, in the temple to make that call to NRI Pulse.
That is so
Pleased.
It was great.
Yes.
So
That was a good sign.
So, since you have been writing different kinds of, you have got a book published, you have a scientific background, what attracts you to journalism? What is the motivation behind continuing this?
So I guess I'm a storyteller by heart. Journalism and writing fiction, you tell stories, right? Both are different ways. completely. I mean, they're completely different from each other, of course, but they are still ways to tell stories. With journalism, you tell the truth. With fiction, you create yarn, right? You're spinning yarn rather. You're creating a make-believe world. But I think with both, I am, able to contribute in some way to the communities, and especially with journalism. Just waking up every morning and looking for news and disseminating the news to the community, letting people know what's happening, not only in Atlanta or in Georgia, but also all around the country. I think it's a very fulfilling thing for me. I love waking up. I've been doing it for 20 years now, even more than 20 years. Just waking up every morning and looking for news. I'm pretty much obsessed with it. So I guess you could say that it's kind of an obsession. And as long as I'm obsessed, I'm going to be a journalist.
What about you, Jyotsna?
You know, Veena ji, it's interesting. When I was growing up, Doordarshan had this. I grew up in Bangalore, so Krishna Gali Gali. She was this newsreader. So my thing was, I cut up. My dad wouldn't give me today's newspaper. Newspaper was like a big thing in our house. All had to be layout. I would take previous days' newspapers. I would cut it out, and I would read. You know how they used to read back in the day. My thing was, I would highlight the news of the day at the previous days. I would keep 6 or 7, and I would sit up and read all of them. Everybody would, and it is a joint family, so my uncles would walk. They're like, "What? Look at her just sitting there." But knowing what's happening around me has always been something that drives me to, aspires me to do better. And when somebody contributes something, when somebody did something that contributes to the world, or in a small way, in a very small way, that I think that feeling of satisfaction is something that nothing else in the world can give you. That part, I think, is what I enjoy most about journalism.
We talked a little bit about how did you meet together, and so what is your connection? How did it all happen? Just can you elaborate on that?
So I think she touched upon the fact that she called from the. She found a copy of NRI Pulse at the Hindu temple. The priest brought it to her, and the next day she called. Right? I think it was back in 2008.
Yeah,
2008.
Late 2007 or early
2008. Yeah, so what I remember about that conversation was that, she called and she said she's very interested in creative writing. So I said, oh, okay, but we are a newspaper. We don't publish a lot of creative writing. Would you like to go around town and cover events? And I think the first assignment wasn't actually an around town event. It was a plane crash that you covered. You spoke to somebody, I believe.
I spoke to the airline. They have a training session here, and the person who had died was an Indian of Indian origin, but come from India for training.
Yes. So that was the first assignment, but I had still not met her in person, and I don't know when we met. Maybe at an event.
I think you introduced me to Francis at Festival of India later that year.
Okay, that's when we met. Yeah. So what I like about Jyotsna is, she's very easy to work with. I think together we bring a lot of positive energy to our work. There's no drama, no fuss. And so just like that, she's been, she agreed to the first assignment, and she's been with us ever since. 17 years now. And in 2017, or was it 2018, I said, would you like to be the city news editor? And she said, yes. And that is it.
That's the
history.
Yeah, wonderful.
So I want to just add one other thing here. I was not a professional writer. I'm not from the journalism field, but I must say this. Veena is one of those people, like, she took me in, no questions asked. She encouraged me. The thing about her is she never gave you anything negative, There was no negative. Okay, just what needs to be improved. So this really helps someone who's starting out, because if she had told me that I was bad at it, or too many corrections, I would probably have stepped back and said, hey, maybe I'm not good at this. But she never did that. And she gave me the best of opportunities. And NRI Pulse is thrived because of this positive.
Because of both of us, I think. Well, we work really well as a team.
So Veena ji, you have been growing NRI Pulse for last 20 years, and it's a big achievement. What was main roadblock, in growing the business, or what are the challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so when I launched NRI Pulse sitting in my living room in 2006, I thought it was going to be a very glamorous mission, right? But yeah, so, well, obviously it wasn't. There were so many challenges. First of all, there was a steep learning curve. Just because I was a journalist by profession, but I had no experience running a business. So just being able to go out and solicit ads. I'm a very shy person, so just being able to do that was also like challenging myself and fighting my fears. That was a learning experience, and just being able to manage people. People are not always very easy to, deal with when you're in business, especially. And thirdly, financial constraints. So many times, especially during the 2008 recession, it almost felt like I was going to give up. And how did I overcome these challenges? I think it was just by running the whole enterprise on a shoestring budget, doing most of the work ourselves. We did most of the work ourselves. Right from, in fact, since we are at Global Mall, I wanted to narrate a little incident. We used to have 6 racks at Global Mall of our print edition. And so one day I was replenishing the copies at the entrance, and one gentleman, he comes up to me and he says, hey, hello, I'd like to contact your editor. Can you give me her number? I said, that's me. What? You're, stocking copies? You're delivering newspapers as well? I said, yes, whatever it takes. But of course, I was embarrassed inside me. But whatever it took, I did everything myself initially, and then Jyotsna came aboard, and we did pretty much everything ourselves. And that's how we survived the worst of the worst times. And then COVID happened. During COVID, we decided that when the world came out of COVID, it was a very different world, right? So we decided not to go back into print. We decided to monetize our digital operations, and that wasn't very easy, because it's very difficult to convince people to advertise on digital medium. So, but we are looking, we are working at ways to monetize our digital editions, and maybe I can talk about it later.
Okay. So Jyotsna ji, so you are also, in NRI Pulse now for 17 years, you said. Can you tell something in your journey that touched your heart or was high point, and it kind of gives you idea that I'm doing the right thing, with my life. So can you narrate something like that for us?
Veena ji, in the 17 years that I've been part of NRI Pulse, it's given me so many opportunities, including in interviewing our governor, Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger. We even interviewed DNC CEO, Seema Nanda at one point. But having said all that, I think the one thing that will always stay with my heart is Adya Kiran. There was this baby, she was just 3 years old, and she was diagnosed with this rare condition rare disease called LACE syndrome. And up until 2 years, her parents, saw her developing just beautifully, and she's just they don't live here. Her aunt lives here, and when I went, she was close to 3, and that's when I met the baby. And she had these beautiful, entrancing eyes, and she smiled so beautifully, And Adya could not eat. She was on feeding tubes, and somebody up until 2 years, a baby that was just fine, suddenly deteriorated. That's what Lay syndrome is. And she could not eat. She was on feeding tubes. She could not walk, so she was kind of held back. She could not move, and yet she smiled so beautifully. And I was a stranger to her. She smiled, and that indomitable spirit that humans represent. That I think I took so much away from her. I don't know what I gave back, but I think I took so much away because my mom was going through cancer at the time and she couldn't eat either. She was on feeding tube. All of this kind of, just it made sense that you should write about it. You should make people aware of something like this. How meaningful it is to do this. That's, I think, will always remain the highlight of being with NRI.
Yeah, people connections are the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, after in this 20 years of journey, what are the milestones that you have achieved? Any awards, publications, increase in membership. Tell us something about that.
So we started in 2004, right? I think I may have mentioned that. So when we launched as a digital magazine, Narsi Narsimhan of Indian Professionals Network, he was very, very helpful. He had a huge database of local email addresses. So every time we came out, we used to come out every 15 days. So he used to share the updates to his data, to his subscribers. And that's how NRI Pulse became quickly popular in the community. Everybody knew NRI Pulse just like that within a few weeks. And it also helped us build our own email database. So that was back in 2004. And then 2006, of course, we launched the print edition at, the RP convention was being held here in downtown Atlanta that year. RP is the American Association of Physicians of Indian origin. Yeah, RP. They're quite big and powerful, and they had their convention in downtown Atlanta, and so that's where NRI Pulse was launched, the print edition. And then, of course, we struggled for a while, struggled through recession in 2008, and then 2010, the Limca Book of Records, they recognized me as the first Indian woman to publish and edit a newspaper outside India. And that recognition, kind of made it easier for us to get advertisers, and it just added value to what we were doing. Even for me personally, just this recognition, it kind of let me, know that I'm on the right track and I'm going the right direction. And so that was very, very important. So Limca Book of Record happened in happened in 2010, and then 2017 or 2018, I believe, we launched our YouTube channel, and Namita Dogra Sudan, who is our video news editor and producer, she's a brilliant anchor. She has a background in broadcast journalism from India, News 18 and ZTV or some other major channels. So she came on board, and so we are a 3-member team now. 3 amazing women. I mean, I wouldn't say that about myself, but two teammates. Amazing teammates.
I'm sure your friends agree that you are an amazing woman.
Yeah, so that happened in 2018, and then of course 2020 COVID hit, and we were forced to suspend our print edition. And so the world that came out of COVID, I believe, was a different world. Everybody was more used to a more virtual, everything being virtual. Meetings were virtual, people worked virtually. So people no longer wanted to wait a whole month to get the news in a print format. They wanted it immediately on their cell phones. And so, and at the same time, my book Purple Lotus, I have a copy here. It came out in the fall of 2020, And so the book did well. And then, I was faced, when COVID ended, I was faced with the choice. Either go back and put all my time and all my efforts into print edition, or focus on growing the digital medium and also keep a writing career going. And I chose the latter. So that's where we are now. And now, fast forward to 2024, we are exploring the event space, and we are very excited about our upcoming event. It's called NRI Stories. So it's a storytelling event, a bit like TEDx or TED Talk, but only more personal, only more from the heart. So we have 8 wonderful, amazing speakers with very, very inspirational stories. So they'll all be going up one by one and talking about the transformative moments of their lives. And we're very excited about this event. It's going to be held on September 22nd in Johns Creek, Sankranti. Please be there.
Given your experience, what advice you would give to somebody who wants to, be in this space, write for people? That's what journalism
Become
is.
a journalist.
Yeah, become a journalist. So, what advice would you give them? Somebody starting career, somebody exploring new space like us.
First of all, be very passionate about what you're doing, which I think you ladies are. I see so much passion in you. Yeah, be very passionate about what you're doing, because you can't go into this field for money or fame or glory, because money, let me tell you, there's very little of it. And glory may or may not happen, but that cannot be the reason why you're going into it, right? So passion, and stay curious. As a journalist, you have to be very curious. You have to know what's happening. Keep your eyes and ears open. You have to know what's happening, right? And most importantly, this should have been number one, integrity. You have to be, you have to have integrity. You have to be married to telling the truth. Especially in this age and time where you can be swayed one way or the other by social media. It's very, very important to have your head firmly on your shoulders and tell the truth as a journalist. I think that's number one.
Jyotsna ji, what is?
Everybody with a cell phone today is a journalist, right? So that's not what journalism is about. You don't just capture something and that becomes news. Yes, it goes viral, yes, but I think to tell the truth and to just not put your opinion on it. It's not about what you think. It is about what the truth is. You put it as a journalist. What you have to remember most is that you put the truth out there. It's for people to decide. It's not for you. You may have your own personal opinion, and that's perfectly fine, but it's not up to me. My opinion is for myself. To have that in your head and to kind of reiterate that fact that just because you are a journalist and you can write whatever doesn't mean you can express your opinions. That's a different
Unless
piece.
you're an opinion
Unless
writer.
you're an opinion piece, right? And that becomes an opinion piece, but not the truth. But as a journalist, if there are some facts, you put the truth out there and let the people decide what they want to do with it. I think to have that, it takes a lot, because it's easy to get swayed, like Veena said, and integrity, to be truthful and passionate about what you're doing, I think is the most important thing. Else, you can just shoot some videos and put it on YouTube and TikTok. So, yeah.
So I just want to thank both of you on behalf of The-Shree-Channel and our audience, who are going to get a wonderful advice out of this process that we have described here for you for NRI Pulse. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, The-Channel, and all of you, and Veena ji. Thank you for having us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.